On the 12th of October 1929, the Limerick Chronicle published a notice regarding subscriptions for the erection of a Limerick War Memorial in Perry Square, to be dedicated to the memory of the 3,000 men of Limerick City and County who fell in the Great War. The memorial was to take the form of a cross of sacrifice, in keeping with structures which could be found in war grave cemeteries around the world. Soon after, on the 9th of November 1929, the Limerick leader announced that the memorial was to be unveiled on Remembrance Sunday. A procession involving former servicemen was arranged, followed by the sounding of the last post, whereupon the monument was unveiled by General Sir W. B. Hickey, KCB, who commanded the 16th Irish Division during World War I. At around 2:50 a.m. on the 7th of August 1957, the memorial was blown up. A number of local residents, upon hearing the explosion, initially thought that a plane had crashed, but the reality soon became clear. Numerous windows were smashed, chimneys tilted, plaster fell from ceilings and walls, and people reported being thrown from their beds by the force of the explosion. The Gardaí arrived on the scene within 5 minutes, with members of the Defence Forces later being called out to evaluate whether any explosives were still present, but nothing was found. The Honorary Secretary of the Limerick branch of the British Legion, Mr. John Ring, a former Sergeant Major, said it is regrettable that this should have happened. The memorial had no political significance and was merely there to commemorate our Limerick men who were killed in the First World War and also in the Second World War. On the 3rd of October 1957, it was reported that malicious injury claims totalling £5,000, £3,000 of which was brought by trustees of the Limerick branch of the British Legion, had been filed against the Limerick Corporation, and on the 1st of February the following year, £535 of damages were awarded to the trustees. Due to public opinion, the Irish Republican movement felt the need to issue a statement in the aftermath of the blast to deny their involvement, but this does not necessarily convey the full reality of the situation. Before the monument was even built, Mr. O'Callaghan, a member of the Limerick Corporation, said, "You can put it up, but it will come down again," even though in newspaper articles the British Legion wrote that no member of the Legion wished to include in the ceremony in connection with the memorial anything at which any Irishman could take offence. Around the time of the explosion, numerous protests were organised by nationalists against the building of the Memorial Gardens in Dublin, with one such instance being a protest from the Clan na Gael, or Pro-Truce IRA. The timing of the explosion in Limerick on the 7th of August 1957 came after a series of attacks on the Memorial Gardens in Dublin. Parts of the country at the time had a very nationalist view and could have seen these monuments as a portrayal of disrespect. Although none of the explosions were ever deemed to be the work of the IRA or nationalists, and nobody was charged with the explosion, it is clear from articles in newspapers about it that the general mindset was that these crimes were committed by people with Republican or nationalist views. Every year, the people of Limerick commemorate the people who died, giving their lives for the cause of World War I and II. In 2003, for example, 200 people attended the annual service to show their respect for the men who paid the ultimate sacrifice. In an article written in 1994, the journalist Ed van der Kerkhoff wrote importantly about the ignorance of the Irish government to the memory of the dead soldiers in the early stages of the 20th century, but as this tradition shows, they are not forgotten in Limerick. The plaque on the memorial, added in 1992, mentions by name the 6 most significant regiments in which Limerick soldiers fought. The origins of the South Irish Horse date back to 1902, when it was first created as the South of Ireland Imperial Yeomanry. It was to last for just 20 years before being dismissed in 1922. At the start of the war, the regiment was stationed with the North Irish Horse at their summer encampment. In December 1917, some 21 men of the regiment were killed in action, with 9 more to later die from wounds. The regiment was later to be caught up in the Kaiserschlacht offensive in March 1918. The Royal Irish Regiment was once previously known as the Royal Regiment of Ireland and the 18th Regiment of Foot. It is often referred to as the first and last. The formation of the regiment is accredited to Sir Arthur Forbes during the time of Charles II in 1684. Some 3,200 men from the regiment were killed during World War I and saw service in Guillemont, Ginchy, Mesopotamia, Lepili and Palestine, to name but a few. The regiment was also involved in the 1916 Rising to try and combat the Irish rebels. In 1922, the regiment ceased to exist with the formation of the new Irish Free State. The Leinster Regiment, also known as the Prince of Wales Leinster Regiment, was founded in 1881 and was active until 1922. It was originally formed through the amalgamation of 2 regiments in 1850, one from India and one from Canada. Roughly 2,000 men died in 4 theatres of battle within the regiment during the war. 4 of its members won the Victoria Cross, along with over 30 battle honours also awarded. When the war ended, the regiment returned to India until its disbandment. Apart from military losses, Limerick volunteers, both male and female, also lost their lives in the war. For example, Mary Daly and Agnes McMahon, along with a number of nurses, Mary Danaher, Elizabeth Grace Stewart and Anna Maud Barry. Other civilians who lost their lives include 4 chaplains: Jeremiah Austin Hartigan, Bernard Kavanagh, Patrick Dorr, and Cornelius MacAuliffe. During World War II, Ireland did suffer losses despite its neutrality, its merchant navy being mostly affected. There were also others who volunteered to fight in the war, such as Henry John Alfred Place. Henry joined the Royal Armoured Corps in 1942 at the age of 18, landed in Normandy aged 20, and lost a leg during his service. In 2014, Henry was awarded the Légion d'honneur from France, their highest military decoration for his bravery. Much like the sacrifices made by those of the British Merchant Navy during the war, Irish seamen were no less noteworthy. Throughout the war, 16 Irish ships were sunk in almost 40 skirmishes. Along with these, some 32 men were wounded and 149 lives were lost. Aside from Irish losses, however, Irish ships also saved the lives of over 500 men whose own ships had been attacked or sunk. To commemorate these Irish men, a monument was placed in City Quay in Dublin, which is embedded with the names of those who died. The Connacht Rangers were created in mid-1881 upon the amalgamation of both the 88th and 92nd Regiments of Foot. The Rangers were based at Renmore Barracks in County Galway. It was the 2nd Battalion which experienced the largest involvement during the war effort. Marching to Gallipoli is when the Rangers became associated with their famous marching song It's a Long Road to Tipperary. The 6th and final battalion formed in County Cork in 1914 and landed in Le Havre to fight on the Western Front. During the last major German assault, the Spring Offensive, remnants of the 6th Battalion were almost annihilated and its survivors were transferred to the 2nd Battalion of the Leinster Regiment. The Royal Munster Fusiliers were created in 1881 following the amalgamation of 2 regiments of the East India Company, and their headquarters were situated in Tralee in County Kerry. The Fusiliers were awarded 3 Victoria Crosses for their participation in World War I before they disbanded following the inception of the Irish Free State. On the 27th of August, the 2nd Battalion of the Munster Fusiliers were chosen to cover the retreat of the 1st Battalion during the Battle of Mons. It was at Mons where the 5th French Army retreated, exposing the British flank. The Munster Fusiliers fought bravely at the village of Etru, and despite being heavily outnumbered, they managed to stem the flow, which allowed the 1st Division to retreat to safe ground, suffering only minuscule losses. The last major battle of the war involving the Munster Fusiliers was the Battle of Effany, which began on October the 18th. It is here where the Fusiliers overran their objectives and where they encountered huge casualties. They were then withdrawn from the war effort, only to return as a rejuvenated force for their final operation during the war at Haute-Noivelle on November the 4th. The Royal Dublin Fusiliers were formed in 1881, with its headquarters situated in Naas, County Kildare. The Fusiliers obtained 3 Victoria Crosses, 48 battle honours, and 5 theatre honours for their endeavours during the war. In 1915, the 2nd Brigade of the Fusiliers was one of the first units of the British Armed Forces to encounter the systematic use of gas attacks against them. Units of the Fusiliers participated in the final offensives, including the Battle of Courtrai, encompassing both September and October of 1918. The final battle that involved the Fusiliers was the Battle of Sambre on November the 4th. The war was to end just a week later.
Friend and Leicester Square, till Paddy got excited, then he shouted to them